is when we add positive numbers, it will move our solution to the right on the number line. Okay, positive numbers, adding positive numbers moves to the right on the number line in a more positive direction, right? Adding negative numbers moves to the left in a more negative direction on the number line. Let me see if I put a number line here. Yes. Okay, if you want to draw a little number line in your notes, you may. I find this to be very helpful, especially if this is something that you're sort of struggling with. It is very helpful to use a number line and to be able to visualize what we're doing when we add and subtract, especially when numbers have different signs or negative signs. I think the negatives are what really throw us off because those are new. We're used to doing positive numbers. That's what we've been doing since, first grade, second grade. But the negative numbers, the number line can help us visualize what happens with a negative number. Okay. So, for example, that sort of got, I'm going to do this on the bottom. Okay. If we do our example A, says 4 plus a negative 4. What that means is the first 4 is positive. So notice how on my number line, I start at a positive 4 right here, right? So we start here, which is 4. And then we're going to add a negative 4. Which way did we say we move when we add a negative number? Finn, thanks for raising your hand. To the left. So now we need to go back this way on our number line 4 units because of the minus sign, the negative sign. We're moving in a negative direction 4 units. So move left 4 units. And then where you end up is your answer. So what is 4 plus a negative 4, Natalie? 0. Yes.
So it's kind of like when you division, it's like 4 divided by 0, it's 0.
Kind of. So 0 can be an answer, okay? And it will be sometimes. You saw that last night. There were a couple that were 0. Let's do another one. You don't, we didn't get that?
Yeah, we never got that. I got it. How did you guys write so slow?
All right, let's look at the next one. Try this again. You don't need to redraw this number line because it's going to be right where you drew it the first time. You can draw another one if you would like. Letter B says we're doing -1 plus a -3. So where should I start on my number line? Where should I start on my number line, Kellen? Start at -1. Okay, so we find that on our number line. 1 to the left because it's a -1. And then we're adding -3, which means which direction should we be going from that -1, Sam?
Left.
Yeah, to the left. In a more negative direction. How many units? Bridget? 3. So we're going left 3 more units because it's negative. Right? So when we move left that 3 units, where do we stop? The number we stop at is our answer. Hazen, what do we get?
-4.
Very good. So -4 is the answer. Do you guys see how we're doing this? Okay. Negatives mean we move to the left. Positives mean we move to the right. And when we do it on the number line, when you end, that's your answer. So when you do that movement, and it will have you do this on the homework, it'll have you use the number line for some of it. So just know how to do it with the number line, and then as you get better at it, you'll be able to do it without a number line. Charlie?
Let's say it's like 3 plus -4.
Uh-huh.
Equals, -1.
Yeah.
But what if it's -4 plus 3?
It would be the same thing. It would be the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because Charlie, you can still add, let's say smaller numbers on top, you can still add.
You can add in any order as long as you keep the signs with their proper number, right? Look at this one, -2 plus 6. -2 plus 6. Where do I start? Dane, where should I start? Start at -2. Oh, I think I forgot the 2. Anyway, start at -2 and then move which direction? To the right. To the right in a positive direction because 6 is positive. So we're going to move to the right 6 units from that -2. Okay, so notice, this is important. First we moved left, -2, and then from here, we move to the right 6. Okay? So you don't go back to 0. You move your -2 to the left, and then from that point, you move 6 to the right. And then where you stop, that's your answer. So what's our solution, Fika? 4. Positive 4. Yep. I mean, you don't have to say positive 4, but I'm just going to say it for clarity. Okay? We can do this. All right, let's look at these guys. Number 1, -2 means I would start to the left 2 units at -2. Plus 2 mean I would go to the right back 2 units. Where do I end up? Addison? 0. 0. -2 plus 2 leaves me back at 0. What about 4 plus a -5? What'd you get, Lily?
I got 9.
Plus a -5. So we start at positive 4.
I thought that was absolute value.
Oh, interesting. That would have been correct. She thought it was absolute value. So that would change it. Okay, 4 plus -5. Bridget, what'd you get? -1. -1. We started at positive 4, and then we moved 5 in a negative direction, which ended us up at -1. Number 3, Noah, what'd you get?
0.
Just with the hand.
Plus 3.
Okay. Kellen, what'd you get?
-6.
-6.
I thought it was good job, guys.
That's all right.
Minus 3.
Yes. I know. And this, you guys, so this brings up a really good point. Your signs are obviously very important in this lesson, right? Like if you forget a sign, it's going to change your whole answer. So just be very careful with your signs. All right, moving on. All right, when adding the same sign, so this is like if we want to not use the number line, these are tips. When adding the same sign, add their absolute values. So just add the number part without looking at the sign and keep the same sign. So this is only if they both have the same sign. They're both positive or they're both negative. You just add the numbers, the absolute values, and then put the sign on that they both had. Natalie.
So, can I just write add numbers?
No.
Or do I have to write?
No, because it's not just add numbers. It's add their absolute values.
You can just say add values.
Add absolute values.
I just said add.
Yes. Charlie.
Probably wrote values 100 times in the past 2 days.
I know.
Because we have an English paper that's about values.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Is the value
Okay, so add the absolute values. Keep the sign that both numbers have. If they're both positive, your answer will be positive. If they're both negative, your answer will be negative. Okay, the short version of this is to combine and keep the sign. So add absolute values, keep the sign. For example, -4 plus a -2. Our rule says that we just add the absolute values of each number, right? So we sort of ignore the signs, add the absolute values, and keep the sign. So what this would really be is we would say the absolute value of -4 is 4. The absolute value of -2 is 2. And we would keep the sign. So this is going to end up being a negative number. So my final answer would be what, Nicholas? -6.
I had a question.
Yes.
Am I allowed to do it like the other way, but like not use the absolute value? 'Cause I feel like
Yep.
okay.
Yep. So if you're more comfortable with the number line way, please do that. Okay? These are 2 different methods. You will eventually get more comfortable with this way. But for now, please do use the number line method because that is helpful to visualize.
I don't like visual. Can you put a number line on the test? That's not a visual word.
I will not put a number line on a test, but can you put the number line on a test?
Yes.
Yes, you may.
That's impossible.
You may. What about this one? 7 plus 13. These are both positive numbers. We add their absolute values. This is easy because their absolute values are also positive numbers. And the answer will be, John, 20.
It's like the
Oh, so that's 21.
20. Here's another one. -8 plus -5. These have the same sign. They have the same sign. So we look at just the absolute value. We ignore the signs. We add. And we put a negative on our answer. What'd you get, Hazen? Use your fingers. 8. -13. Yes. -13. So we just added 8 plus 5 is 13, and it's going to be a negative. Or on the number line, we would have started at -5 and moved 8 more in a negative direction to end at -13. Yes.
I thought 2 negatives equal like
That's just.
For multiplication and division. That is true. That is true. All right. So then, our rule when we add different signs, so if we have a negative and a positive, this is what we talked about last week. We subtract in a way that makes sense. So we take the larger absolute value, subtract the smaller absolute value. And this is why we talked about absolute value in 1.1, because it becomes important when we're doing subtraction of different signs. Okay, so when you have different signs and you're adding, subtract larger minus smaller. And then the sign of your answer is the sign of the bigger number, the bigger absolute value.
oh now we can do that.
Yep, this is why we did absolute value in the beginning, because it actually shows back up again. The answer will have the sign of the larger absolute value number. Okay? All right, let's look at letter A. 5 plus a -10. These are different signs. 5 is positive, 10 is negative. So we need to subtract in a way that makes sense. What should we do? Addison, what did you do?
I did on the number line.
Yep.
0, go 10 to the
Yep,
left,
right.
and then add 5, so I got -5.
Very good. Okay. The other thing we could have done, Finn, if I was going to do it the other way, what'd you do?
So you put it on without the number line, you can do, so what makes sense is 10 on top, 5 on the bottom.
Right.
And then 10 is the bigger absolute value.
Yep.
And it equals 5, so it's a negative.
Very good. So do you guys see how we did that? We took the bigger absolute value, which is 10, subtracted the smaller absolute value, which is 5, and the sign of the answer is the sign of the number that had the bigger absolute value. The number line would have also been a great way to visualize this and get the same answer. Good. Letter B, -3 plus 7. How would you have done this? How did you do this? Kellen, what'd you do?
I did 7 minus 3.
Very good. Which gave you
4.
4. And should it be a positive 4 or a negative 4?
Positive.
Good, because why?
Because 7 was a positive.
Yes, 7 is a positive and it is the larger absolute value. So positive 4 is correct. And the last one, -12 plus 12. How did we do this, Vika? What'd you do?
Well, 12 if you go down negative, and then you just add it back up to 0.
Yeah. So this one, the number line would be really easy to visualize this. You start -12, move a positive direction 12, you end up back at 0. Or if we just subtract, right? There's not necessarily a way that makes more sense, but 12 minus 12 is 0. 0 doesn't have a sign, so our answer is just 0. Let's look at number 1. Number 1 says -2 plus 11. -2 plus 11. Sam, tell me what you got. 9. Very good. Positive 9, whether you use the number line or the absolute value method, you should get 9 either way. Number 2, what'd you get, Hazen? -1 is correct. -1. And finally, Maggie, what'd you get? 0. Perfect. make it equal 0. So the additive number, the additive inverse is always just the opposite of the number that gets you back to 0. So it's its opposite sign.
Like isolating, like you find the.
Yes, and so that's why we're talking about this, is because when we start isolating a variable, we use additive inverses. So it's just the opposite, so it gets you back to 0. So negative 25, the additive inverse is plus 25, because that gets us back to 0. 6 plus its additive inverse, which is negative 6, gets us back to 0.
3 and C on the last things that we did were additive.
Exactly. So all the ones that we ended up with a 0, those were because we used additive inverses on our examples. Okay? So just some vocabulary. All right, this is our last one. This is a little word problem. Okay. Yes, I mean, you don't have to write the whole word problem, but I want you to write the chart. Okay? You have a bank account, and you make the following transactions. Minus $40, plus $50, plus $75, minus $50. So I do want you to write those down, because those are the numbers that we're going to need to work with in order to solve this problem. Okay? So this is a bank account, and these are the transactions that have happened.
How much money do you start out with, or is it not going to say?
It's not going to say. So we are assuming 0, right? We're going to assume we started with 0. I just put these as each month. Oops. Let's make the T cross. All right, so let's say that this was a bank account, and then each month this is what happened in the account. It took out money or it gained money. Okay? The question asks, what is your final balance? So at the end of October, how much money do you have in your bank account? Or does this person have? Do you have the answer? I'll come back to you. First, I'm going to talk about how to get to the answer. All right. What is your final balance? How to get to the answer? Noah, tell me what we should do to get to the answer. What would you do?
The inverse property, I find two numbers, and then that's 0.
Yes.
And then just this 40 minus
Good.
75 equals 30.
Okay. Did you guys hear what Noah said?
Yeah.
Good. So that's why I'm going to repeat it, because it is very important. What do you notice in this set of numbers, using great math vocabulary that we just wrote down? What do you notice?
Additive inverse.
Additive inverses. Exactly. Do you see these two? If we add those, what do we get? 0. Does that take away the amount of math we have to do to solve this problem? Yes. So if you start here, we get rid of some math work that we have to do. And who loves to do less math work to solve a problem? Yay. Okay, then all we're left with is 75 and negative 40. So what should we do? Noah, finish it up for us.
Subtract them.
Yep. Subtract in the way that makes sense, because they're different signs. We end up with 35, and it's positive because 75 was the larger number. Please make sure with word problems that we always label them. So we're talking about money, we're talking about an account. So your answer is $35 in your account at the end.